God bless you, dear ones. Welcome to the Word with Chester. Today we will continue study in the 20th chapter of the book of First Kings. In our last session, we read down to verse 30. Today we will begin reading at verse 31, continue to the conclusion of this chapter, and God willing, we will read completely through through chapter 21. I trust that you have your Bibles and you will read along with us as we study the Word of God. Well, to use time expeditiously, I'm going to go immediately into the session today. Please read along with us if it is possible. Read along with us. I know some people listen to us while they're driving. Please don't do anything unsafe. But if you can read along with us, it would be beneficial to you. Well, let's get a picture of what has transpired before we begin our reading today. The King Ahab, God was with him in battle. They went out against Ben-Hadad, and actually they won the war against them. And in one day, they, with the help of God, of course, in fact it was God, they went through and they killed over 100,000 of the Syrians. And then after they killed that 100,000, they in their fleeing. Ben-Hadad's men fleeing, they went into a city and a wall fell on them and killed 25,000 more. Can you see the hand of God was dealing and in this for them to win this battle? Well, so when they, after they had won this battle, now we go into our lesson today. You're going to find out what Ben-Hadad and his men are trying to do and actually was successful at it. But shall we begin our reading at verse 31? The Bible reads, "And his servant said unto him, Behold," now we're talking about the servants of Ben-Hadad. "And his servant said unto him, Behold, now we have heard that the king of the house of Israel are merciful kings. Let us, I pray thee, put sackcloth on our loins and ropes upon our head, and go out to the king of Israel. Perhaps he will save thy life." Now, in that day, remember when kings would go and subdue another kingdom, they would also kill that king, and get, in other words, they would kill that king, and many times they would make sport of that and take his head and hang it somewhere, or drag his body through, so everybody could see that they had taken or subdued that king. So understand. So they're transpiring because Ben-Hadad did not want this to happen. So his men got together and they conspired this. Now let's read in verse 32. So they girded a sackcloth on their loins and put ropes on their heads, and came to the king of Israel and said, Thy servant Ben-Hadad saith, I pray thee, let me live. And he said, is he yet alive? He asked the question. Ahab asked him, is he yet alive? He is my brother. Now, can you get the picture? Ahab saying this, is he yet alive? He is my brother. Now, let's read on. In verse 33, and the men did diligently observe whether anything would come from him. In other words, they were listening to hear what Ahab was going to say, and did hastily catch it. They caught what he said now in verse, as we continue, and they said, Thy brother Ben-Hadad Shall we continue? Then he said, Go ye, bring him. And Benadad came forth to him, and he caused him to come up unto the chariot. Can you get the picture? They sent to get Benadad, and they brought him up. And at that time, the kings went out to battle with the regular men. And so when they brought Benadad up to the chariot where King Ahab was. Now, verse 34, and Benadad said unto him, The cities which my father took from thy father, I will restore. I will restore, thou shalt make streets for thee in Damascus, as my father made in Samaria. Then said Ahab, I will send thee away with this covenant. So he made a covenant with him and sent him away. Can you get the picture? If Ahab would have been thinking he had already subdued the king, so he could have did all of these things himself and went in and made streets in Damascus, whatever he wanted to do, he could have did it. Why? Because he had already won the battle. If he went on and followed through what God had told him to do. Now let's read in verse 35. And a certain man of the sons of the prophets, said unto his neighbor, in the word of the Lord, one of the sons of the prophets, get the picture, one of the sons of the prophets said unto him, shall I read that again? And a certain man of the sons of the prophets, said unto his neighbor, in the word of the Lord. He said it in the word of the Lord. And in other words, it wasn't him. It was coming from the Lord. He said unto him in the word of the Lord, Smite me, I pray thee. And the man refused to smite him. He was saying, hit me. Well, he had something that he was going to do that God was instructing him to do. So he's telling this young man to hit him. But the man would not hit him. The man refused to hit him. And I can understand. Can you understand? When somebody come up and tell you to hit them, you got mercy. You don't want to see nobody hurting, if you please. But get the picture. This was something from God. And the man did not hit him. In verse 36, then said he unto him, because thou hast not obeyed the voice of the Lord, behold, as soon as thou art departed from me, a lion shall slay thee. And as soon as he was departed from him, a lion found him and slew him. Can you get the picture? He spoke out the prophetic words, and it happened immediately as soon as he left, just like he said. And now you got to get that now. You know that this must have been God in what was said, because you don't command lions. Now we got lion tamers and lion trainers and all that kind of stuff. But in that day, we're not talking about the same situation. Well, he went out and a lion slew him, just like the word of the Lord had said. Now let's read in verse 37. And he found another man and said, Smite me, I pray thee. And the man smote him, so that in smiting, he wounded him. Get the picture. He wounded. This was the sons of the prophets. And God was doing it for a reason. In him smiting him, he wounded him, getting ready to go do something else. Shall we read in verse 38? And so the prophet departed and waited for the king by the way, and disguised himself with ashes upon his face. Shall I continue reading? As the king passed by, he cried unto the king and said, Thy servant went out into the midst of the battle, and behold, a man turned aside and brought a man unto me, and said, Keep this man If by any means he be missing, then shall thy life be for his life, or else thou shalt pay a talent of silver. Can you get what the king is saying and what is transpiring here? Now that was the reason for him being hit, so he could show the bruisings as if he was in the heat of the battle, if you please. In verse 40. And as thy servant was busy here and there, he was gone. And the king of Israel said unto him, so shall thy judgment be. Thyself has decided it. Now get the picture. I hope we're making this thing plain. Now let's read verse 41. And he hasted and took the ashes away from his face, and the king of Israel recognized him that he was of the prophets. Can you get the picture? After he took the ashes away, the king knew that this was one of the prophets. He was with the prophets, if you please. Now let's read in verse 42. And he said unto him, thus saith the Lord, because thou hast let go out of thy hands a man whom I appointed to utter destruction. Therefore thy life shall go for his life, and thy people for his people. Can you get the picture? Now this was the word of the Lord, the prophet now speaking to him, because you let this king go, and I commanded you to utterly destroy him, and you let him go. Well, your life is going to be taken, and your kingdom is going to be taken. This is what the word of the Lord is saying to Ahab. Now let's read. In verse 43, and the king of Israel went to his house resentful and displeased, and came to Samaria. He went from his house. He was resentful. Can you get the picture? And displeased. And we're going to, as we read on through chapter 21, we're going to find out about the spirit of Ahab and what type of man he was. He went resentful. But I also want you to know, as we read on, he heard what the prophet had said. And anytime you know someone is a prophet, and they say something of that magnitude to you, it would make you wonder, and you'd be thinking about that even days after, because the prophet had said these words. Now get the picture. When a prophet prophesies, he does not bring it to pass. He does not make it happen. He prophesies. He gives the word of the Lord. And when he gives the word of the Lord, God brings it to pass in his time. Now, in verse 43, and the king of Israel went to his house resentful and displeased, and came to Samaria. So he went now, back home now. Battle is over. The word of the Lord came, and he got the word of the Lord. He heard the word of the Lord. Can you get the picture now? Let's read in verse 21, chapter 21, verse 1. Now let's continue reading. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth, the Jezreelite, had a vineyard which was in Jezreel, close to the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. Can you get this now? This man had a vineyard, and it was very close to the palace where Ahab lived. Now let's read. And Ahab spoke unto Naboth, saying, give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs. In other words, he wanted this man's vineyard. So he's saying, give it to me, because it is near unto my house, and I will give thee for it a better vineyard. I'll give you something better than what you already have, better than it, or if it seem good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. Can you see Ahab trying to make a deal with him because he wanted this vineyard? In verse 3, And Naboth said unto Ahab, the Lord forbid me, that's a capital Lord, the Lord forbid me that I should give the inheritance of my father unto thee. The Lord forbid me. I can't give you my inheritance. I can't give it to you. This has not more than sentimental value. Yes, it's a nice vineyard, and yes, I love it, but it has more than just that. It has sentimental value. This is an inheritance to me. It was given to me. Now let's read in verse 4. And Ahab came unto his house sullen and displeased because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him, and he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he lay down upon his bed and turned away his face and would not eat no food. Now, can you see Ahab, who he is now? He couldn't get the vineyard, and so he's going to get all hot and bothered. He's going to go in there and lay down in the bed with his face against the wall and sulk. So this was the kind of man he was, over a vineyard, because he didn't get a vineyard. Can you get the picture? I can understand him if he'd have went in after he'd heard the words of the prophet that the kingdom was going to be taken from him and he was going to die just like the other king. Now that would have been a time to go in there and lay on the bed, but he's now laying on the bed because he didn't get a vineyard now, salting, if you please. Now, and didn't eat any food. That's how severe it was in his mind. Verse 5, but Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said unto him, why is thy spirit so sad that thou eatest no food? So Jezebel come and question him now. Verse 6, and he said unto her, because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard. Can you get this picture? Now let's read on. And Jezebel, his wife, said unto him, doest thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? Arise and eat food, and let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. Can you get the picture? His wife telling him, aren't you the king? Aren't you the king? And you're up here laying here salting over this. Get up now. I'm going to go do it. I'll go give you the kingdom. Now let's read on in verse 8. And she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters unto the elders and to the nobles who were in his city, dwelling with Naboth. Can you get the picture? She wrote the letter in the king's name, if you please. And not only in the king's name, she put the king's seal on the letter. Please excuse me. Now verse 9, and she wrote in the letter, saying, proclaim a fast, and let Naboth on high, set Naboth on high among the people. Now that's what you get now. You have to understand what she was doing. They want to have a feast here now and take Nabal and put him up, set him up on high, put him in the chief seat, if you please. So she has this plan. Shall we read on? Verse 9, and she wrote a letter saying, proclaim a fast, and let Naboth and set Naboth on high among the people. Proclaim a fast now, and then set Naboth up on high among the people, and set two men, worthless fellows. These were men that will lie. These were men who will connive and cut up, if you please, and set two men, worthless fellows, before him, to bear witness against him, saying, thou didst blaspheme God and the king, and then carry him out and stone him that he may die. Can you get the picture? She's setting Naboth up. She's setting him up. She's setting him up to kill him. She lift him up on high like he's somebody, and then she conspired with these worthless men to lie and said he blasphemed against God and also blasphemed against the king. Shall we read on in 11? And the men of the city, even the elders and the nobles, who were the inhabitants of the city, of his city, did as Jezebel had sent unto them, and as it was written in the letters which she had sent unto them. Verse 12, they proclaimed a fast and set Naboth on high among the people. Can you get the picture? They set him up high among the people. In verse 13, and there came in two men, worthless fellows, and set before him, and the worthless men witnessed against him and against Naboth in the presence of the people. As we continue reading, saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king, and they carried him forth out of the city and stoned him with stones so that he died. I hope you're hearing me today. Shall we continue reading? Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned to death, and is dead. Verse 15, and it came to pass when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said unto Ahab, arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth, the Jezreelite, which he refused to give the money. Give thee for money, for Naboth is not alive, but is dead. Shall we continue reading? And it came to pass when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, that Ahab rose up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth, the Jezreelite, to take possession of it. Now let's read on. We may get through this. I'm going to do my best. Let's read on in verse 17. Let's see what happened. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, who is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, where he is gone down to possess it. Can you get the picture? When something happens and God is not pleased with it, and that's what you have to understand. God sees everything and he knows all. Shall we continue reading? And thou shalt speak to him, saying, thus saith the Lord, hast thou killed and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, thus saith the Lord, in the place where dogs licked up the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine. And you got to get the picture. It takes a strong prophet to go up and talk to a king that way. But the Lord told him to go do it. The saint, just wherever they licked up Naboth's blood, they're going to lick up your blood as well. Now let's read in 20. And Ahab said unto Elijah, hast thou found me, O mine enemy? Ahab's talking to the prophet. You're my enemy because you speak out negative things. But yet, let's read on. And he answered, I have found thee. Because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. You didn't find me. I found you. I found you because you're working evil in the sight of the Lord. Behold, I will bring evil upon thee and will take away thy posterity. This is the Lord speaking through the prophet. I will take away thy prosperity and will cut off from Ahab every male, all of the male, I'll cut them off, and him who is shut up and left in Israel, I will cut them off. Now verse 22, and will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, Baasha, the son of Abijah, from the provocation with which thou hast provoked me to anger and made Israel to sin. Verse 23, and of Jezebel, not just you, but I'm going to talk about your wife here now too, and of Jezebel, also spoke the Lord, saying, the dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. The dogs are going to eat your wife, man. The dogs are going to eat up Jezebel. She's the wicked one here that conspired all of this mess. In verse 24, him that dieth of Ahab in the city, the dog shall eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowl of the air eat. Verse 25, but there was none like unto Ahab, who did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord. There was none like you, but you decided you wanted to do wickedly. And God is saying, I'm going to tear you down. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to take the kingdom completely away from you. 25 again, but there was none like unto Ahab, who did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel, his wife, stirred up. Jezebel stirred this mess up in you. Now let's read on in verse 26. And he did very abominably in following idols, according to all things, and did as did the Amorites, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. In verse 27, and it came to pass when Ahab heard these words that he tore his clothes and put sackcloth upon his flesh and fasted and lay in the sackcloth and went softly. Can you get the picture? When he heard these words, he knew Elijah was a true prophet, and if Elijah said it, it will come to pass. Verse 28, and the word of the Lord came unto Elijah the Tishbite, saying, verse 29, seest thou how Ahab humbled himself before me? Because he humbled himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his days, but in his son's days will I bring the evil upon his house. I hope you're getting that. God said, I'm not going to do it while he's alive. But when he's dead, when he has died, I'll bring this evil upon his house. Now we're going to read further. We'll begin chapter 22 in our next lesson. You be here and watch this story unfold. Very great story, but you can see the hand of God in everything, and the hand of God using Elijah. Well, my dears, I want you to know that I love you. I love you with the love of the Lord. God bless you.